It was 3 a.m. when Emily woke up to the sudden sound of her landline phone ringing. She wasn't expecting any calls at such a late hour. Slowly, she reached for the receiver and picked it up. The line was silent, except for the sound of heavy breathing on the other end. She asked in a shaky voice, "Who's there?" There was no reply. Just that breathing. She hung up the phone nervously, trying to calm herself, but a deep unease began creeping into her chest. Something felt wrong, as if the darkness around her was hiding something. A few minutes later, the lights went out. She looked around her small apartment, now engulfed in an eerie darkness. She reached for her mobile phone, but its battery was dead. Remembering that her neighbor, Martha, lived next door, Emily decided to go to her for help. She quickly put on her coat and stepped into the hallway. The corridor was unnaturally dark, and the air was heavy, as though it carried something unseen. When she knocked on Martha's door, there was no answer. A cold shiver ran down her spine, but she refused to let fear take over. She tried the doorknob and found it unlocked. Cautiously, she stepped inside, calling out in a low voice, "Martha? Are you here?" Silence was her only answer. She moved slowly toward the living room, where she noticed something strange. The television was on, but the screen was black, emitting a faint humming noise. On the table, a cup of coffee was still steaming, meaning Martha had been there recently. Suddenly, she heard footsteps behind her. She spun around quickly but saw no one. She felt heavy breaths on the back of her neck but didn't dare turn again. She bolted toward the door, but just as she reached it, it slammed shut in her face. A strange voice whispered, "You shouldn't have come here." Emily screamed loudly but soon realized she couldn't move. The shadows in the room seemed to writhe and shift as if they were alive. Out of the corner of her eye, she noticed a man standing in the corner of the room. His face was pale, and his eyes were sunken into darkness. He stepped toward her slowly, whispering, "You've seen what you weren't supposed to see." Emily tried to regain her senses, but it felt as though something was taking control of her mind. The man whispered again, "Martha isn't coming back. And now, it's your turn." In an instant, the lights flickered back on, and Emily found herself alone in the apartment. There was no sign of the man or the moving shadows. She ran back to her apartment, slamming the door shut behind her. Sitting on her bed, she tried to process what had just happened. But then, she felt something heavy on the bed beside her. Slowly, she turned her head to see a note written in shaky handwriting, "The final call was for you." At that moment, the landline phone began to ring again.